Recording in progress.
Welcome into the latest episode of Betting the Pitch Europa League edition. I'm your host, Real_G Warner, joined by nobody, but it's me, late night, as always, the Real_G Warner, right before we get a tip-off in the last game of the Maui Invitational. If you're a college basketball fan, please check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Real_G Warner. Best spot for all my plays, leans right across all sports. Well, on today's episode, we're going to try to improve our 13-3 year-to-date best bet record on soccer bets with the ultimate best bet. What I do end of show is I combine my best plays from each of the countries on the domestic podcast every weekend. And then on the continental, specifically for Europa League, I'm going to do the early window, the 12:45 Eastern time slate, and then the 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern time, and pick one of my favorites from both of those windows. And then you can grade me on that. And hopefully we'll be improving to a better football score for the next episode. Across all the platforms, I'm at the Real_G Warner. If you want more of this podcast, go to Betting the Pitch and subscribe there on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. On YouTube at the Real_G Warner. Instagram works there, though I'm in between phones right now, trying to make sure I get enough memory so I can cut that 1 minute ultimate best bet. So if you want to digest this episode in 1 minute instead of 40, make sure you follow at the Real_G Warner on Instagram. So going to get this tweeted out so people know I'm live, and then try to get a little bit queued up in the background because I do want to make sure I don't miss the tip of this Maui Invitational matchup. But I don't think this podcast is going to take 40 whole minutes. We'll see. I'm going to go through each game on the list, each bettable option opportunity, and try to find some winners because that's the goal here. Other than that, if you have any questions or want to interact with the podcast, feel free to do so. I do have comments on, and we'll see if I can find a way to see them. But with that all said, it's time to get into this Europa League Match Day 5 edition. I don't think it makes sense to talk about where teams are in the points races because we still have 3 match days left to go. But those episodes are going to come, and they're going to come much longer, and there's going to be a lot more teams to talk about. So stay tuned and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. So in the Europa League, we'll start on Thursday, the 28th, of November, Thanksgiving here in the United States, but also a big continental soccer day in Europe. So we'll start with Lazio hosting Ludogorets of Bulgaria. Lazio currently 1.75 goal favorite, almost all the juice in Ludogorets. Over under is 3, juiced all the way to over. So Ludogorets have been a really good under team so far in this competition. Actually had a lead on Athletic Club Bilbao from La Liga in their last match before the international break of Europa League. And it's wild that they could take a lead because they're very unlikely to score goals. At this point, I don't know who's backing them to win matches. They're nearly 10-1 odds to win this road match. And Lazio have been playing very, very well in Serie A, including a back-breaking third goal. They were winning a match 2-0, had a set piece, conceded to Bologna, but scored late, killed my under. But they've been playing really, really well. And they're a side that I've been wanting to back. I have backed in this competition on the road at Twente Enschede. But at this point, or Anschond, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Anyway, some Dutch club from the Eredivisie. And I think at this point, I'm looking to be on Lazio as much as possible. So as a 1.75 goal favorite, that's not my style, especially if you listen to this podcast and have listened to it or followed me on any sort of platform. I generally root for the bad teams, so I certainly try to make it so my bad teams are not as bad as the market thinks they are. But then I think for this, I guess, window here in this matchup in the early window, I'll put it, that's probably a better way to put it, as I'm clearly distracted trying to set up my best bets portion of the show. For the nominee, I guess, for this early window as a potential ultimate best bet recommendation, I'll go with under 3. It's all the way juiced to over. We might see 3.25 before kickoff. Lazio stay at home, so they'll be at Stadio Olimpico again, which is good for them and probably means they play well. I just don't think Ludogorets have much of a chance to score here, and that's going to make it really hard for Lazio to give you 4 goals. And especially if it gets to 3.25, then 3-goal finish would end up being a winner. So that's my interest in that early first matchup in the early window. Ludogorets under 3 goals. Move next to Athletic Club Bilbao, who I just mentioned on their road trip to Ludogorets, where they came from behind. I think scored 2 goals in a minute in like the 73rd minute and 74th after trailing throughout the match. Good step for them. And coming off El Derby Vasco, we'll see if they potentially rotate a little bit, but also coming back from international break into the derby. Then playing on Thursday. It's a lot of time between Sunday and Thursday. So we'll see what comes out of here. The nice part, though, for Athletic Club is they're a 2-goal favorite to Elfsborg. All the juice in Elfsborg away from home, over-under is 3.25, and it's juiced slightly more to under. Not a lot to see here. I don't think Elfsborg are anywhere near this competition, though they did, I think, beat Roma, or at least draw them earlier this season. But Roma has been in disastrous run for a long time. So probably not a lot to take out of that one. I think biggest interest for me is that this is a Athletic Club opportunity to rotate, and maybe we don't see Iñaki Williams and Nico Williams on both flanks. I don't know necessarily that Elfsborg will be able to defend on the road in Bilbao in a really tough place to play like San Mamés for 90 minutes, and that's what they're going to have to do. So we'll see how that ends up working out. I guess I'll put under 3.25 on my list, but I'm not sure it's going to make it too far into the ultimate best bet portion. But stick around for that. That's coming end of show. Move next to AZ Alkmaar from the Eredivisie in Holland, or in the Netherlands. They are hosting Galatasaray of Turkey. Currently, AZ a quarter goal underdog at home with more juice on Galatasaray. Over under is 3, juice more to the under. AZ, they've been okay in this competition. I feel like I was impressed with them early. I've been less impressed since. Galatasaray on the other side have spent a ton of money on big names you've heard, Victor Osimhen especially, who was expecting a mostly 100 million or plus move to PSG. That didn't happen, fell through, and he ended up in Turkey on loan because Napoli wanted him out, and he wanted out and didn't get to where he was going. With that said, it's a long-winded way to say I do like the home underdog. Dutch Eredivisie crowds at home are awesome and make a real impact on the home team. I'd like them as more of a defensive underdog, though all underdogs at home are of interest to me. So I'll put that on my list as AZ as a home underdog, getting that quarter goal. I don't know that under 3 is as interesting to me, but I can't blame you if you want to take it, because that's a very important push offered there on 3. Moving next to Dynamo Kiev hosting, quote unquote hosting. If you're watching on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube, you can see the air quotes. But Dynamo Kiev are not playing in Kyiv. They are outside Ukraine for this entire competition, and they are hosting in that sort of way Victoria Plzeň from the Czech Republic, or Czechia as it's currently called. Over under is 2.5. This one juiced all the way to under. Wouldn't be shocked if the number continues to fall. I just don't think Dynamo Kiev are anywhere near capable or good enough for this competition, at least not for the respect they get in said competition. They're not playing at home. They have no home games. They're forever vagabonds, gypsies. Probably not the right thing to say, but ultimately Victoria Plzeň, they are not strong, but they've scored a bunch of goals in this competition. They have got a big win in their last match before the international break, I think against Real Sociedad at home. I like their defense. I think this is a low-scoring matchup, and at the current pick'em with all the juice on Dynamo Kyiv, we might see this climb to quarter goal underdog, and that's where I'll be looking at for Victoria Plzeň. They somehow won their last match against Real Sociedad, which looked like a dead under, even with a youth team center back playing in their 3-man back line. I'm very curious to see what that back line looks like for Victoria Plzeň in this matchup. But even then, I think that was a pretty good performance, and I think there's a lot of value going against Dynamo Kiev in their fake home. So Victoria Plzeň, I'll put them on the list as the I guess. I don't know that I want to put him on as a pick 'em just yet, so I'll go under 2.5 is my biggest interest, but I am certainly waiting. Well, honestly, I think I'm willing to play home pick 'ems, and certainly that would apply to neutrals. And this Dynamo Kyiv team is playing in their fake home, but I don't consider it that way. So I'll put that pick 'em with plus money, plus odds on the list, and I'll go under 2.5 in that matchup as well. Moving next to Anderlecht of Belgium, hosting Football Club Porto of Portugal. Currently, Anderlecht, a quarter goal underdog at home with more juice on Porto away from home. Totals 2.5, juiced all the way to over. Porto used to be a defensive side. They've been scoring a ton of goals and conceding a lot, more importantly, in this competition. That's scary, especially going away from home as a favorite. For that reason, amongst others, I do like Anderlecht in that quarter of a goal. They're a pretty talented Belgian side that certainly are capable and could definitely win this matchup. Like that quarter of a goal at home underdog. And I don't really have much of a feel for the total. Moving next to Besiktas hosting Maccabi Tel Aviv, the Turkey side from from Istanbul. Sorry, I already mentioned Galatasaray. They're hosting Maccabi Tel Aviv, who are another one of those vagabonds not able to play home matches this year in Israel, and they're just not very strong. I think they're in for a rude awakening heading to one of the bigger cathedrals in Istanbul, soccer cathedrals, that is. Totals 2 3/4, juiced all the way to over. I'd like it a little bit more if it hit 3. I just don't think I want any business dealing with Maccabi Tel Aviv at this point in the Europa League. Moving next to Rigas Football Escola, I believe from Latvia, I want to say. They're hosting PAOK of Thessaloniki in Greece. Currently, Riga Football Escola are RFS. They are 3/4 goal underdog at home with a little bit more juice over. There's 2 3/4 juice pretty heavily to under. I don't see a lot of goals in this matchup. That's my biggest interest there. It's, I guess, in a way, back in home underdogs defense if you play under the total. So under 2 3/4 my interest in that one. And we'll go to the last matchup in the early slate before you get my nominee for the ultimate best bet 13-3 year to date. And that is Karabag hosting Lyon. Currently, Karabag a half a goal underdog in Azerbaijan with all the juice. Over under is 3, juice about the same, a little bit more to under, just 1 penny. Splits the difference there. Lyon are growing into a good team. I think they should be able to win this matchup. Clearly, they're favored away from home. Only real interest for me, I think, is to Karabag, that home underdog, getting a half of a goal. I just don't feel great about them competing on the scoreboard. And if I don't like an under and I don't like a home underdog, that's probably a good sign for me to stay away from that matchup. So for the early window of the Europa League on this match day 5, I need to make a selection, or I need to make a nomination for the ultimate best bet portion of the show. And for that one, I'm going to go as I put the comments on to show they're open. If you throw something in here, I'll try to reply if I see it. But I'm going to go with, from that early window, man, I think Anderlecht getting a quarter of a goal is my biggest interest there. So I'll put that on the list. Anderlecht, quarter goal underdog at home against Porto. We'll move to the late slate, and so it's clearly not that late, as it's, I think, just going to settle in right before we're even considering trying to figure out what channel the Giants and the Cowboys are in NFL football. A little bit different than the current football we're talking about on the Betting Pitch podcast, Europa League edition. We'll start with Ferencváros from Budapest in Hungary, or Hungaria. They're hosting Malmo of Sweden, I think. Ferencváros, a half a goal favorite at home with all the juice. Over unders 2.5, juice more to the over. I'm surprised to see Ferencváros favored. They've been playing well in this competition. They're a good defensive side. They're going to sit in and defend even at home against a side they're favored to. So for that reason, I think this is a conservative, low-scoring matchup. I like Malmo getting that half of a goal, and I also like the under 2.5 as my biggest interest in that matchup. Moving next to FCSB of Bucharest, I believe, in Romania. They're hosting Olympiacos of Piraeus in Greece. Currently, FCSB a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice on Olympiacos away from home. Totals 2.5 in this one, juiced all the way to under. I don't see a lot of goals. Olympiacos have been, somehow a really aggressive attacking manager has made them a really decent European competitor. And here they are, favored away from home yet again. I don't know that I want to necessarily step in the way of Olympiacos. Their owner also owns Nottingham Forest and has splashed money in both of these clubs. Got a lot of big names on Olympiacos roster in a Greek Super League that doesn't really compare to a lot of leagues out there, but is stronger than the Romanian league. And I think we'll see Olympiacos looking like a favorite, but we'll see if they can actually punch the goals across the line. I think I'll still lean to the home underdog in Bucharest, a quarter goal underdog at home. Looks like it might climb to a half of a goal before kickoff as well. The biggest interest, I think, is under 2.5 in this one. Moving next to Nice, they're hosting Rangers of Scotland and of Glasgow specifically. Currently, Nice, a half a goal favorite with a little bit more juice. Over under is 2 3/4, juice all the way to under. Not a lot of goals expected in this matchup, which is basically every Nice match that goes out there. They spent a ton of money, but they have a defensive manager, brought him in the offseason. It's been a slow start to his campaign. But Rangers, they travel well. They have a ton of crowd, fans in the crowd, supporters coming in from Scotland to the Côte d'Azur. But at this point, I don't think I want to back Rangers at this point. I don't really trust Nice, though, to score. So I think my biggest interest in the Rangers-Nice matchup is under 2 3/4. Move next to Michelin, hosting Eintracht Frankfurt from the German financial capital, Michelin in Denmark, I believe. Totals 2 3/4. This one juiced pretty heavily to over, but the side Michelin are a half a goal underdog at home with all the juice. Maybe this falls to a quarter of a goal, but I expect Eintracht Frankfurt money to come in. They've been playing very well. They're in the top 3 of the German Bundesliga entering the last match day. So A lot of good plays come from them. They've got a lot of talent and have been scoring a ton of goals. And I don't know really I want to get in the way of that with either a Michelin side or an under 2 3/4. Maybe at 3, I'll have a little more interest, but probably still want to stay away because Eintracht Frankfurt's defense is not exactly impregnable, as Mike Tyson once said about himself. Sporting Braga then hosts Hoffenheim as the Southwest Germans will head to the Portuguese, I guess not capital, but they'll head to Portugal. Braga, half a goal favorite at home, all the juice on Hoffenheim with their new manager, fresh off of, I guess, not a boat because Austria and Germany are landlocked next to each other, but straight out of Sturm Graz. Over under is 3, juice more to the over. And Hoffenheim, I mean, they played aggressively, somehow tied Leipzig, fell behind 3 times, equalized all the 3, and then scored a late goal to somehow get a win in one of the most miraculous debuts for a German Bundesliga manager. It had to be. I guess I like their side because they can score goals. I don't think I want much to do with unders. I don't really think I was that impressed by the Sturm Graz manager, but I guess they needed someone when Pellegrino Matarazzo, the American, had to be shown the door. That didn't seem like it was going to hold all season, though he did somehow get them into this Europa League competition, which is amazing. I think Hoffenheim getting the half of goals is my biggest interest just because they can score, but I still have some big concerns about their defense, especially conceding 3 to Leipzig. Real Sociedad then hosts Ajax. Currently, Sociedad a half a goal favorite at home with more juice than Ajax away from home. Total is 2.5, and just juice more to the under. Ajax, to me, I think there's still some value betting them, maybe more into the under than their side. Real Sociedad coming off the Derby Vasco, so they're going to certainly be gassed and emotional, especially after a trip to Bilbao for it. Ajax coming in, big name, certainly will draw a big crowd, but that's never really a problem for Aurora Reala. They are simply getting goals is the biggest issue for them. I think the biggest interest for me in this one still is Ajax. I do like the side, just really playing against the Sociedad offense that's forced to win this match. Result will not do to cover the spread, but I lean under 2.5 is my biggest interest in that matchup. We'll move next to Tottenham hosting Roma. Tottenham, who had an incredible 4-0 victory again on the road at Man City this past weekend in the English Premier League. Wow. I don't think anyone saw that coming, though I'm still kicking myself for not playing 1.25 goal underdog Tottenham in that matchup. Roma on the other side lost a low-scoring match on the road at Napoli. Was very expected. I played under 2.25 in that matchup, and I don't really see much scoring from them at all this season. I also don't think a Leicester City Premier League title winning manager from 10 years ago is going to make too much of a difference. Good luck, Claudio Ranieri. I hope something changes for Roma, but I don't really know that they can score with Tottenham, and I don't want to play much total here. Roma are an under team, Tottenham are an over team, and since they're pointing in different directions, I will skip. Moving next to Manchester United, they're hosting Bodo Glimt. Currently, Manchester United a 2-goal favorite at home. All the juice on Bodo Glimt away from home. Totals 3.25 in this matchup, juice pretty heavily to over. Manchester United brought in Ruben Amorim from Sporting Clube de Portugal in Lisboa. We'll see. The jury's certainly still out on him as this is his second match in charge. But Bodo Glimt are going to come in. They're going to try to score goals. We'll see how that works. But I think ultimately they'll be forced and pressed and pushed back into their own end, looking to defend. And that's going to be a big question is can Manchester United find goals since they're now playing 3 center backs, which is the Almarim way. However, it's going to take an attacker off the pitch for them. And we'll see how they try to find goals as a big favorite with 3 at the back, unless he changes formation in just a second matchup. Can't imagine he's doing that. Probably going to play how he'll play in the Premier League and try to get that set in. So lean to Bodo Glimt getting 2 goals of insurance. Massive number, even though it's pretty juiced at the moment. And as I do in every Manchester United match, I lean under 3.25 in this one. FC Twente on Shaded then host Union Saint-Gilloise. Currently Twente, a quarter-goal favorite at home to Union Saint-Gilloise. Over-under is 2.5, juiced all the way to over. Twente have not been impressive to me, so I'm looking to be on USG. I think I like the quarter of a goal more than I like an under here. Twente will certainly try to defend and try to keep this low scoring, but Lazio were also a quarter goal underdog, somehow closed there just a couple months ago. So big moves there. Union Saint-Gilloise not as strong as they have been in the past few seasons, but I believe in their system. I believe in their formula, and I don't believe in FC Twente. Last but not least, in this late window before I get to the ultimate best bet and then try to get some plugs out there too, which let's see if I can make sure I find and have those things ready to go. Of course, I do not, but we'll see and try to get them there. But we'll go to Slavia Prague. They're hosting Fenerbahce. Currently, Slavia Prague, a quarter goal favorite at home in Prague's the capital of Czechia. They're hosting Fenerbahce from Turkey in Istanbul. Total is 2.25, juiced all the way to over. Which is saying something because Fenerbahce, I mean, managed by Jose Mourinho, will certainly be a defensive setup as always under the special one. Slavia Prague on the other side, they're the same sort of way. They defend. They're a good defense. They do find goals, and I feel like they're competitive, and this is a good competition for them. But this is tough as a favorite. They're not a favorite very often. I thought they played really well on the road at Eintracht Frankfurt and at Athletic Club before that. But I think this is a kind of a weird situation. I mean, clearly the market likes them, making them a favorite to a big Turkish giant with Jose Mourinho managing. But I lean to Fenerbahce getting that quarter of a goal, and I also lean to under 2.25, as I think Slavia Prague are just hard to see them as a home favorite. It's hard to see them with a lot of responsibility to score goals, and I think that all kind of points in that same direction, which to me says check out the under 2.25 and also the road underdog. Before I get to the ultimate best bet, I plan to try to get some shout outs to recent Patreon subscribers and of course to all of you that have subscribed on YouTube, plus the many followers that I have found and I have seen. If you feel like you haven't gotten shouted out, please feel free to holla and let me know. Certainly want to make sure I'm doing that the right way and trying to get all of you your due. It's been a good run. I mean, podcast is growing every day, more and more listeners, watchers, all those sort of things. And I certainly appreciate that. I think at this point, I guess maybe I saved it in my drafts. Certainly want to shout out some recent. So of course, 13-3, our last 16 ultimate best bets. Actually, all of them so far this season. It's been a great run. I'm going to try to keep that going as long as humanly possible. Want to make sure I mention, so new Patreon subscribers or those of you that have re-upped again, Brett Mangigian, Joe Dollar, Joe Susek, Jeff Chapman, thanks so much. And then YouTube, of course, new subscribers, Hani Freeman, John McLemore, Wader Enterprises, nice name, Mustafa Shukri, Nick Restrepo, JC Truth. The support's huge, and I'm still trying to come up with a way to support or at least shout out the rest of you if you want to, of course, if you want to stay quiet or not mentioned, that's certainly cool too. Just tell me what works best for you and I'll try to make that happen. But I think it's probably time for me to get into the ultimate best bet. Stop stalling, Griffin, just get going. And I guess before I do that, so let's get some plugs out there. If you're not subscribed, Betting the Pitch and Apple Podcasts on Spotify, at the Real_G Warner on YouTube, at the Real_G Warner on Instagram. Still on my mom's phone for this reel, so there will be a reel back for the Europa League on Thursday, and expect one for the NFL coming out on this Sunday, which, speaking of, mentions the Betting the Pitch NFL edition podcast with _Schnicker. We go through the NFL lines every Tuesday night, give you an idea of where they're moving, but through all the standalone games. We usually do each standalone game and get to 6, but we went through 1 million on this podcast, so a lot of bang for your buck in terms of time invested. So make sure you go check that out. Of course, still doing pregame.com podcasts on college football with Big East Ben. We put out the college football one today on Wednesday, November 27th. We're still figuring out the next recording of the Need for Seeds college basketball podcast, but I'll be coming out. And let's just say things have been hot for me on that basketball gridiron or hard court or floor, and certainly going to try to keep that going as long as possible. Before I get to the ultimate best bet, I guess I need to make a selection of what my favorite will be for this episode, at least for the late window. And I think I'm going to go with that Ajax under 2.5 goals on the road at Real Sociedad. So that gets us ready for the ultimate best bet. I'm just going to hold it. It's probably going to have to be looking at the camera, so sorry if you want to see my face really just gazing into your eyes as I'm recording this, but it's time to get going, so let's do it. Hey, this is Real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the late night with the Real_G Warner ultimate best bet. We're 13-3 year to date, 81%. Going to try to keep that run going as long as possible. I'm giving you 2 best bets, one from the early window in Europa League, one from the late, and I pick one, my favorite, to be the ultimate best bet on this episode. From the early window, I like Anderlecht, a quarter goal underdog at home to FC Porto. And in the late window, I like Ajax under 2.5 goals on the road at Real Sociedad. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/Real_G Warner. But my ultimate best bet in this episode, 13-3 year to date. I'm going Ajax under 2.5 goals. Combined with Real Sociedad, I guess. But I think this is a close matchup. Ajax are going to score less goals than expected. I think Real Sociedad can control the ball, but they always struggle to put the ball in the net. So play under 2.5 is the ultimate best bet. 13-3 year to date, trying to get to 14-3 before we sign off and get to the next weekend episode this coming weekend. That'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I will, of course, be live again, probably Friday at some point, going over the domestic cards across all of the top 5 European soccer leagues. And then, of course, stay tuned for more college basketball, and I will sleep, I guess, in 2025.
Recording stopped.